Okay, what if we thought about our teams not just as a group of coworkers, but as a solar system? Today, we're going to dive into this idea. It's going to give us a whole new language for understanding why teams work the way they do, all the tensions, the dynamics, and the incredible things that can happen when different people come together. I mean, you've been there, right? You're in a meeting and one person is talking about the grand 10-year vision, someone else zeroed in on the budget for next Tuesday, and a third person is just trying to make sure everyone's getting along. It can honestly feel like you're all speaking completely different languages, creating all this friction when you're supposed to have flow.
And this right here is that friction in action. You've got the visionary, who's thinking in galaxies, dreaming up what could be. And then, right next to them, you have the realist, asking, okay, but how much does the canvas cost? Who's holding the paintbrush? Look, both of these roles are absolutely vital, but from the outside, it can really feel like they're on a collision course. So how do we make sense of these totally different orbits?
We can start with a framework called the 7 planetary roles. This first part is all about understanding the how of teamwork, the specific functional hats people naturally put on to get a project moving.
And this is so important. Every single role is essential. There's no bad planet in this solar system. Think about it. Our own solar system needs the gravitational pull of every planet to stay in balance. It's the exact same with a team. You need the unique contribution of every single one of these roles to really succeed.
All right, let's take a quick tour of these roles. So you can think of Mars as the spark, the one who says, hey, I've got an idea. Then Saturn comes in, the visionary, asking, okay, but does this idea point toward our North Star? Jupiter is the planner, the one who loves a good spreadsheet and maps out the whole journey, step by step. The sun is kind of like the center of gravity, making sure everyone's voice is heard and integrated. Mercury is all about the human element, the relationships. And the moon brings it all back down to Earth with the real-world practical details. And finally, you have Venus, who acts as the team's conscience, asking if what we're doing is good for our people and aligns with our values. See, every one of them has a critical part to play.
Okay, so that's the how, but that just leads to a much deeper question, doesn't it? Why do people naturally drift toward these roles? What's the engine under the hood that's driving their focus? To figure that out, we've got to go another layer deeper.
And the answer is something called our core worldview. You can think of this as the hidden operating system that runs in the background. It's the mental lens we use to understand cause and effect. It's our deep, fundamental belief about why things happen the way they do. And these are those worldviews. For a materialist, if you can't touch it or count it, it's not real. Physical stuff is what matters. A scientist, on the other hand, believes the world runs on measurable, discoverable laws. Now contrast that with an artist who genuinely believes a powerful vision can literally bend reality into shape, or a spiritualist who sees the invisible connections between everything. Then you've got the humanist who puts their faith in human choice and creativity, the naturalist who trusts in organic cycles, and the religionist who looks to a higher authority and tradition. The truth is, we all use a mix of these to navigate the world.
And now, for the really cool part. We've talked about the how, those planetary roles, and we've talked about the why, these core worldviews. This is the moment where we connect the dots between the two.
This is really the whole point. That underlying belief system, that worldview, is the fuel for the role we naturally play on a team. It's the reason someone always seems to be the one asking the tough, practical questions or the one pushing for the big, bold vision.
So check out how this works. Let's take the moon type, our realist, who's always focused on the nitty-gritty details. Well, that role is often fueled by a materialist worldview, a core belief that physical resources and limitations are what ultimately determine what's possible. Or how about Saturn, the visionary? Their big-picture thinking is so often driven by an artist worldview, that powerful belief that a creative idea can actually create a new reality. Suddenly, all those team dynamics start to make a whole lot more sense, don't they?
So, with this new way of seeing things, we can start to reframe something that we usually try to avoid at all costs: conflict. We can actually start to see it not as a problem, but as a genuine source of strength.
I mean, this reframes everything. What we call team conflict is a lot of the time just a necessary conversation between these different and equally valid worldviews. It stops being personal. It's not about you versus me, it's about this perspective versus that perspective. And when you see it that way, that tension can become incredibly productive.
So for instance, that classic tension between Saturn and the moon, it's not a personality clash. It's the essential dialogue between the artist's worldview, which is dreaming up this amazing, ambitious vision, and the materialist worldview, which is trying to ground that vision in physical reality. You absolutely need both to succeed.
Or think about the push and pull between Jupiter and Mercury. On one side, you've got the scientist's deep desire for a perfect, measurable, flawless process. And on the other, you have the humanist's focus on making sure that perfect process actually works for the real, live people who have to use it. One builds the system, the other makes it human.
And finally, there's this great dynamic between Mars and Venus. This is that classic dialogue between the humanist drive to just act, to get stuff done, and the spiritualist's need to pause and make sure those actions are really connected to the team's deeper purpose and values. One is all about the what, and the other protects the why. So the big question is, how do we actually put this all into practice? How can understanding our team's solar system help us build a smarter, more effective team starting tomorrow?
Well, this framework basically gives you a brand new toolkit. Suddenly, you can communicate better by framing your ideas in a language that speaks to your colleagues' worldview. You can see conflict not as a fight, but as a productive conversation. You can build more balanced teams by looking for not just different skills, but different ways of seeing the world. And, maybe most importantly, you get this incredibly powerful lens for understanding your own natural tendencies and where you fit in the solar system. So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. Look at your own team, right now. Think about your biggest project. Which planet's orbit seems to be missing? What role, and maybe more importantly, what worldview does your team need most to find its balance and really start to shine?